Today is Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. It was relatively calm in the C market last week, with daily averages between 370 and 380, down from previous week's highs. I'm Kylee Clancy.
And I'm Christopher Farron.
This is buying season. I think my least favorite farm dog is in Colombia.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
You have a least favorite farm dog?
Not least favorite, but he's mean.
Really?
He's a mean little man.
Whose dog is it?
It's my friend Pedro in Colombia.
Oh my God.
And so Pedro runs Pergamino, and a lot of the Pergamino cafes, they have tons of marketing. They even have a blend named after him. Like he's definitely a figure,
Okay.
but he's mean. But yeah, actually Pedro, aside from his occasionally frightening dog, he's actually been a super, super helpful resource for me in terms of just not only understanding Colombian coffee, but also just understanding the market. In the past couple years that I've gone to visit him, we usually do a 4-hour drive and back in the same day. And this past year, I was like, okay, my topic for this car ride is I want to talk about the market because what is going on?
Yeah, it's a good time for it. Yeah.
What is going on?
It's interesting too, because Pergamino, they're a roaster. They have their cafes in Medellin, but they also are an exporter of green coffee and they have farms. So they kind of operate across all three levels.
Yeah. It's a really interesting spot to be in where you get to see kind of so many different parts of the supply chain.
Yeah.
I feel actually almost all of it except for import.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it'd be cool to talk to Pedro, and I'd love to hear what he thinks and just get his perspective and insight on what's going on.
Perfect. Let me just get my matcha order in really quick. Yeah, let's give him a call. Pedro, also, just because I actually realized that I don't have the answer to this, how do you say your last name?
Echavarria.
I think I'm just gonna stick with Pedro. I think you're just Pedro.
As long as it doesn't drop into Dro or something.
Dro?
Yeah, that's what my American friends at school would call me. Dro.
I hate
Not
that.
a
Yeah, I
big
hate
fan.
that too.
Not a big fan.
No.
Yeah, I will never do that to you. Or I won't, at least. Thanks for being here, Pedro.
No, thanks for having me.
I'm just kind of really wondering overall, with the market being crazy, how has the market really impacted your work this year? And what is kind of your role in relation to how you have to deal with the market?
Yeah, I think one of the major issues for all of us, and it definitely has been for us, the major component of what we've had to handle is volatility, right? So it's at the end, it doesn't obviously it matters if the stability happens at $4 a pound or if it happens at $1 a pound. But what I think adds so much noise to everybody trying to make decisions on this is the volatility and the swings and the how dramatic they are. We're seeing that a lot of producers are taking full advantage of the price. To be honest, this level of market, we believe that, producers are seeing a margin that they just weren't seeing before, but it's just helping them to, bridge that moment where they used to be just a kind of a survival mode to actually, having a profit, being able to save. And so anyway, producers are taking advantage. They're going out and selling everything that they have. We're actually seeing now in February, we usually are able to buy quite a bit in February, but we're seeing that a lot of the places where we usually buy are now completely out of coffee. Everybody sold whatever they had in January, taking advantage of the price.
I keep an index of everywhere I buy coffee from, just looking at local pricing. And I just took a glance back at 2018. And for 84-point coffees from Colombia in 2018, I was paying about 920,000 pesos per carga. Last week we were at 3.2 million as the internal reference price from FNC.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, especially when you see it from the specialty perspective, because again, it's very hard to know specifically what's the cost of production, and it will dramatically shift depending on productivity, regions, whether there's hired labor or producers are doing it all themselves, or how you calculate it. It's a world in itself and for a different podcast. But obviously the price of sale right now is way above the cost of production and is permitting producers to get, what we think is reasonable profits for the risks involved and the effort involved in coffee growing, right? But for specialty, this adds another layer of complexity because I mean, if you look at what you're seeing in 2018 and you're seeing a price of carga of 900,000 pesos, and your good blender lots could pay maybe 400,000 pesos above. That's a dramatic difference, between what you get for specialty and what you got for commercial, right?
For sure.
Right now, if you go to the local market and you end up paying 300,000 pesos more per carga for specialty for an 84 because the differential remains the same. 300,000 pesos at 3 million is very different than 300,000 at 900, right? And we understand from the roaster's perspective, okay, the price has gone up, then the differential has to come down. The differential is paid for quality or is it paid for producer sustainability? That's a question that we think we've never really answered fully. And I think everybody has slightly different answers to that. But the differential should be specifically for quality, right? You're paying for a specific quality, both in green preparation and in, sensory quality. And that's what you're paying for. And it's an incentive for the producer to say, okay, I have this coffee. I can either sell it to the local, commercial market, which is going to pay me 3 million, or I'm going to go and sell it to the specialty market. But the specialty market is going to require better drying, better fermentation, better preparation of parchment, better cup quality, obviously, all these things. And then when the market's at 3, producers go and it's like, why the hell would I go to the extra mile? It's like, 3 million is good enough. What we're starting to see is that producers, the incentive of the 300,000 pesos per carga, let's just call it that. Obviously, it varies depending on quality, but that differential for high quality blends is not enough anymore. Obviously, for microlots keeps being enough, but for the blends, which is a big part of everybody's business, the incentive is just not there. So you see producers either saying, hey, I'm not going to go choose my parchment. I'm just going to deliver the same way. And then the exporter is kind of screwed because our yields are going through the roof, right? So if it took us, 98, 99 kilos of parchment to get a 70 bag of green, now we're needing, 102, 103 because, producers are just not selecting their parchment enough. And at the same time, we're getting pressures from roasters and from importing saying, lower your differential. And on top of that, and I don't want to make this just a, exporting crybaby podcast,
great.
but
I want it. Do
no,
it.
but it's all facts, to be honest. I mean, and the other issue is that we've all, and this is the same for importers as well. Most of us work on a fixed margin, right? So we've worked with a specific amount of cents per pound forever, and that hasn't really changed. And if anything, it has, we've been, pushed to that for that margin to become smaller as, we get more pressures from roasters and importers saying, lower differentials because the market's high. And we've had to finance coffee at twice the price of what we had before. So we just, we're finishing our financials from last year. Our cost of financing that coffee, what we had in inventory December 31st, which is our kind of peak of the end of the year, was almost 2.5 times what it's traditionally been. And, in a business where, margins are still going to be obviously small, that sort of difference in financing makes a big hit. So I think that's where a lot of exporters will find most of their troubles coming from, and where you have to really be very on top of your game and make sure that, that doesn't go out of whack. But it's really where the big pressure is. So yeah, as an exporter, and especially in specialty, I think we're all on a hard year. We're glad for the producers, though. We're very happy for the producers, but as an exporter, it's a hard year.
Yeah, so I've heard from a number of folks in different producing countries that there are cooperatives that are defaulting on the coffees that they'd hedged, and then others that are actually going under right now as a result of the market.
There is news coming out. If you're here based in Colombia, you've been hearing about this for a lot longer than what's gone on the news. Like we saw, 2.5 years ago when the FNC through the co-ops incentivized producer to fix the market at a specific level, both in exchange rate and in the C market, expecting a price per carga of 1.2, 1.3 million, which at that time seemed like a really good price. And what ended up happening was that that same harvest, that was the first time the market hit about 250, which I think was 2021 or 22, and
Mm-hmm.
now I don't remember. And a lot of the smaller producers that promised to deliver, and we're talking about, I think the last time I heard was like 500 million kilos of parchment. It's a lot. It was a lot of coffee. It was like 3,000 contracts of green, which is humongous for us in specialty. That's like just
It's a
humongous amount
lot.
of
Yeah.
coffee.
Yeah.
And a lot of these smaller producers didn't deliver because the market, when they were delivering, they would have they got paid 1,500,000, 1,600,000, 1,700,000 elsewhere if they just did not fulfill that into the co-op. So who ended up holding the bag was the co-op, but the co-op did this through the FNC. So who ended up at the end holding the bag was the FNC, who, as I understand, was the actual entity that promoted this process. The problem is that those contracts at the end, got liquidated. We still don't know the amount of money that was lost in this, and that money has to come from somewhere, right? And where it comes from is probably from what you call the Colombian Coffee Fund, which every producer, every exporter that exports a pound of coffee delivers 6 cents of per pound exported to this fund as a tax, as a contribution, they call it, but it's a tax. And this is used to fund the FNC's technical assistance program, research, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact that they're trading coffee also means that, they might make money, or they might, in this case, lose a lot of money trading coffee. It's still unknown who's going to pay for that, because it's a lot of money. So either the national government's going to pay for that. It just, we don't have as much information, but I think it's definitely a good example of what happens when you try to sell fixed price coffees in a market like Colombia, where who delivers is a very small producer, which is very hard to hold, responsible for what they promised. It's like, it's about 25,000 producers that signed up for this. How are you going to go and track 25,000 producers and tell them, hey, you need to deliver? It's like, it's physically, humanly, legally impossible.
So we keep talking about differentials, which is right, the price paid on top of the market for whatever premium we're saying. But how do those differential prices, how are those decided?
Yeah, there's no right or specific answer for that, because the market for differentials is never as perfect as, and by perfect, I mean supply and demand perfect, right? As the market for the C market. Even if there's a lot of speculation in the C market, at the end, it's a demand and offer. People are offering contracts or demanding contracts. The price will, meet where the demand and the offer sets. For differential, it's not openly traded, so it's impossible to know exactly at what point differentials are.
Mm-hmm.
For specialty, for excelsos, and for other origins, it's a lot. There's a lot more volume. So excelsos, you ask any big trader and they'll tell you. Right now, they're actually pretty diverse. I was talking to somebody that's telling me that they're receiving offers from -3 to +11, and which is interesting is that it's sometimes in you can sense the financial position of who's offering that, because people that are offering at higher differentials are probably in a much better financial position than those that are offering at a lower differential, because maybe they just need to get contracts, to get financing for those contracts, to keep the wheels moving in terms of their purchasing. But that's a whole different move. Back to your question, Amy, I'm sorry, I digress a bit. But for differentials, I think that's where, I think relationships matter a lot more, and understanding between, the roasters, the importers, and, the producers and exporters. It's about a constant conversation. We obviously get pressure, and, I think that there is a certain market for 84, 85 blenders where everybody has a relatively similar view on where that kind of is happening, but you might see, gaps from one exporter to another. And it also depends on the structure that each exporter has to pay a premium to the producer, right? Because, a lot of people work, for example, with big co-ops. So they have negotiating prices with co-ops, which is different than buying directly from producers. We, for example, we buy directly from producers, and in some areas we have what we call logistical operators, which is basically members of the community that help us operate warehouses, and they have a fixed margin. But it's not a negotiation with a co-op, which has a lot more different interests, right? We're going directly to the producer. So the differential is going to be constructed in many different ways. So it's really hard to exactly say, a differential for an 84 is at this level, a differential for 86 is at this level, and it's hard. But there is an idea of where it should be, I guess. I don't know.
When we talk about the price of coffee, it's either like it's fixed or it's based off the market, and it's one of these two very simple things. And there's so many more complexities
Yeah,
involved. It's not just like a fixed price or the
and per
market
origin,
price.
I think it varies a lot. Obviously, we only have experiences in Colombia, but from my conversations with you, for example, my conversations with colleagues in Central America, things are just a little bit different. It's like Central America specialty gets sold at fixed prices a lot more than I guess.
Does that give you any amount of anxiety that like with the market so volatile and high that folks are going to try and shift their buying to other places?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I haven't been able to sleep well for the past month and a half. No, I mean, all kidding aside, that's really, with all we're talking, that's really where we don't know where the market's gonna end up. To be honest, I think that you can't make up in cents what you lost in dollars. So if the market just came up $2.50, no matter how efficient you are dropping your differential, 30 or 40 or 50 cents, that's not going to make a hell of a difference with what happened with the market. And it can make a hell of a difference in the quality of the coffee that you're buying. At the end, what we were saying before, these differentials are even smaller percentage wise of the total price of coffee than they used to be. So if anything, relatively buying specialty is cheaper now than it was before.
Pedro, thanks so much for just spending some time with us and shedding a little light on all of this, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it's a lot of moving parts.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and good luck with the project. It looks really, really interesting.
Thanks so much. Everyone, check out Pergamino, whether you're a green buyer or you're just traveling through Colombia. So let's say that you meet a genie and the genie offers you the gift of being able to know the future. I'm serious.
Going.
Would you take it?
I don't know. It's like I'm so nosy.
Mm,
Like I'm so nosy.
yeah.
And the unknown really freaks me out. Like I hate not knowing the answer to things.
But like, isn't the not knowing also part of what makes life special and magical? Just that deep uncertainty and the chaos and randomness of it.
I mean, for some people, sure. I guess there is kind of like that, like the like giddy mystery excitement side of things,
Yeah.
where you're like, ooh, what's gonna happen next?
I mean, yeah, it would make our jobs a lot easier.
See, you're talking about a genie to grant you coffee futures knowledge.
But like I feel like so much of what we do as buyers is trying to see the future and predict. But if I had a genie telling me like, no, bro, fix.
But I feel like even if you had a genie being like, no, bro, fix, like you wouldn't listen. You'd be like, but genie,
Yeah,
listen, I know more. Genie, listen.
All right, I think that's it.
Okay, well, we'll see you soon. This is buying season. Bye.